one.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about tribalism. Recently, there's been a lot of attention to the fact that belonging to a group is something that's hardwired in human beings, as in many other animals, and that it is something that our political system can no longer afford to ignore. Amy Chua recently completed a book called Political Tribes, in which she accounts for a lot of behavior simply is doing to loyalty to one's own extended family or ethnic group, and she even explains terrorism, even among the 9/11 hijackers, is an extreme example of group-centered activity as opposed to the individual. I've often talked about the idea that the way people get what they have in relation to other people, and perhaps without having to make all the sacrifices other people make, that's an area of moral concern. And in other videos I've said that when people see people having things that they didn't earn, and are public about it, that sort of undermines the respect for the law in the minds of other people. What I don't think I said in some of these earlier videos is that a lot of times the desire to force people to share wealth or to redistribute wealth has been mixed with tribal beliefs, and the fact that things ought to be done by group rather than by focusing on the individual, or it might be a belief that the individual's self-worth is partly tied to the group that the individual is affiliated with, as well as with the fact that the individual should be accounted for his or her own actions. So my previous arguments about people being social and being more willing to share risk, for example, when I wrote that in 2014 in my book, I really didn't take into account the fact how strong the arguments for tribal loyalty and the fact that you would do something for your extended family or for your tribe or for others in your tribe, but not for others in the world, how strong that was. I think that people are also saying that tribalism is hardwired in human beings. Perhaps so, but it certainly is not. It certainly is variable. Human beings vary a lot in how tribal they are. We understand that if you look at the Bible, if you look at the Old Testament, the whole political system of the history of the Israelites was based on tribal law and and the fact that a person's behavior was really to benefit the tribe. Firstborn children and that kind of thing. A lot of things had a lot of significance then that they don't now. Today, because people interdate and intermarry, they intermarry between ethnic groups and they can intermarry between races, and that's a lot more common than it used to be. To me, the idea of tribal identity, the way it's been discussed in some books in the last year or two, seems a little overdone. And I do think that equality and inequality is important, but I do think that mixing the debate on inequality with the idea that certain groups are better off than others, and that we have to have reparative measures. For example, that we have to treat Black Lives Matter, for example, that we have to be more wary of white supremacy groups than of black groups because of the past, with of course the fact that there was slavery in the past and that there was a Nazi party in Germany in the past. So that we have to treat groups also according to what this history is, as well as to examine the individual behaviors of people in the groups. I think that's overdone. And so, for example, after Charlottesville, remember that Donald Trump was not as critical of, was not more critical of the white supremacists who started a demonstration than he was of the counter demonstrations on the left, some of which were violent. He treated them the same. I personally sort of agreed with that, but I wasn't willing to sign on to the idea that you can shut down a group just because the goals the group has in the were wrong in the past. That you can simply say the group cannot exist, and then allow, because that group can't exist, you can allow violent opposition to that group, like Antifa, for example. No, I'm not a fan of that kind of thinking, but I do understand where it's coming from. In any case, in previous remarks, I have not been as mindful of tribal identity and tribalism as maybe I should have been.